Owing to Bhutan's imposing mountainous terrain, agricultural land is in very short supply, and only about 3% is actually cultivated. And yet, Bhutan has an overwhelmingly agrarian society. 90% of its people are living in rural and often remote areas. Most are engaged in subsistence farming. There is, therefore, a need for farmers to ensure that the limited land resources available to them are used to optimal capacity. Irrigated agriculture is a vital element in the farming system for 2 out of 3 cultivators. About 1/5 of the land under cultivation is terraced and is irrigated. This is usually classified as wetland to distinguish it from non-irrigated land and shifting cultivation. Irrigated agriculture in Bhutan is associated with rice production. Rice accounts for around 40% of the domestic cereal production. With very few exceptions, paddy is the single wetland crop grown in the monsoon season. And given the opportunity, many farmers would convert dry land into wetland to grow more paddy, especially if they were not already self-sufficient. Farmers attach great value to irrigation facilities. No wonder that the royal government of Bhutan is committed to assisting farmer communities with the development of their irrigation schemes. For about 25 years now, the government has been providing financial support and technical guidance for the construction and rehabilitation of irrigation infrastructure. This is done in partnership with the farmer beneficiaries who supply the bulk of the labor. An estimated 50% of Bhutan's irrigated area has been affected by the government's irrigation support program. Irrigation engineers have introduced modern techniques to help farmers construct irrigation canals through extremely hostile terrain. Terrain that would otherwise be impossible to negotiate, or at best require continuous maintenance and repair to the system. Plastic pipes allow water to pass through unstable areas. Gabion dams effectively divert streams into canals. Escape structures can control the water intake into a canal. Masonry lining of canals helps to prevent excessive leakage. If used with care, these techniques can tremendously improve the performance of irrigation schemes with clear benefits for the farmer communities. Nevertheless, government intervention in irrigation has not always been a success. Introduction of new technology may be necessary for better performance, but making physical improvements alone often does not bring the desired result. New technologies usually require a different approach to operation and maintenance. In cases where irrigator communities were not able to cope, modern irrigation schemes have fallen into disrepair. Improving management capabilities of local water users may be as important as making technical improvements. The realization that the key to sustainability of irrigation schemes is in their management is the starting point of Bhutan's new national irrigation policy. This policy was recently adopted by the royal government and presents an entirely new approach to improve the performance and viability of community irrigation systems. 4 basic principles underlie the approach. First, the policy explicitly seeks to incorporate farmer knowledge in the development of irrigation schemes. Over the generations, farmers have built up vital skills and experience in cultivating the land in harmony with the environment. Incorporation of farmer knowledge is critical to designing and implementing sustainable irrigation schemes. Who better than the benefiting farmers know what will happen to this potential irrigation source once the monsoon rains come down in full force? Beneficiary participation becomes meaningful when farmers take part as decision makers, rather than only as suppliers of unpaid labor. Having recognized the importance of contributions farmers can make to the development of viable schemes, the policy has been designed to fully involve the beneficiaries in the development process, from planning and design to implementation and improvement of irrigation schemes. Failing to achieve meaningful participation often results in a loss of ownership feeling and a decreased sense of responsibility towards the scheme. The third principle is support to water user groups. The policy attaches great importance to strengthening and supporting these groups. Support here means that government assists farmers to develop effective organizations to maintain their irrigation schemes. Part of the assistance should therefore be directed to strengthening local management capabilities. This can mean social and financial management as well as technical. Here, irrigators are learning to manage scheme funds through a bank. We'll see more of this later. Finally, the policy is based on a multidisciplinary approach. Since irrigation is an activity with many aspects, assistance cannot be limited to engineering aspects only. A multidisciplinary effort is required to give due attention to the engineering and agricultural aspects of irrigation. And, perhaps most important, to the people who are supposed to benefit from the development. The national irrigation policy has been developed on a small number of so-called model schemes, which serves as pilot sites for field testing of policy procedures. Let us see how the policy principles have been translated into field activities. Getting meaningful farmer participation requires several meetings long before a project is taken up. This can include lengthy discussion, the first meeting with the beneficiaries usually starts with a game to introduce government staff and beneficiaries to each other and to break the ice for a more open and frank discussion. Before a project is taken up, several meetings are conducted to discuss all details of the project. How can the project best benefit everyone? How should the work be organized? Who will be responsible for what? When should the project start? Equally important in the discussions are questions about the future once the scheme is completed. How will the scheme be maintained after completion? How will cement and other maintenance materials be bought? These are all important questions that should be addressed before a scheme receives assistance. Interviews with individuals are conducted as well to get the views from those beneficiaries who for some reason preferred not to express themselves in the group meetings. Selected groups of beneficiaries are taken on a farmer study tour to view the construction materials and structures that the engineers have proposed for their scheme. During this trip to the Punaka Wangti project, the group saw many structures for the first time. The study tour broadened farmers' awareness of the range and techniques that could be applied for improving irrigation systems. In the course of the study tour, farmers proposed several changes to the original design. There was ample opportunity for discussion with engineers. Later, during implementation, these experiences also helped forestall any misunderstanding about the purpose of certain structures. Also, they were given the chance to meet other farmers and share their experience with them. The labour organiser of this village relates how they had managed to effectively implement their scheme in the previous year. According to the policy, only schemes that have a formally established Water Users Association can be assisted. In many cases, informal water users organizations already exist. Looking at local management capabilities is an important element of feasibility studies. Where effective local organizations already exist, these will not be replaced, but maintained and strengthened, as they are generally well established. The Water Users Association is headed by a committee. The committee is a representative and executive body which is elected by the water users. Several community meetings are organized to ensure that the concept and purpose of the committee are clearly understood by all water users. In the presentations, the water users themselves play an active role, explaining and discussing the role of the committee members. Other topics discussed are the role of women in the committee, compensation of the water guard, and contributions to the Water User Association's maintenance fund. The committee typically includes a chairperson, a secretary, an accountant, a water guard, and several executive members. The flexible use of flannel graph pictures allows the beneficiaries to compose the committee to their choice and needs. Here, for example, the beneficiaries decide that their secretary could do all accountancy tasks as well, and therefore the picture of the accountant can be withdrawn from the board. Finally, the water users choose from among themselves the committee members. When the Water Users Association is thus formally established, the signing of the letter of undertaking by the association and the government signals that implementation of the project can start. During project implementation, beneficiaries share a significant part of the cost by providing the bulk of the labor. But beneficiary participation should not be limited to the supply of free labor. They should be equally involved in decision-making and construction management. The Committee of the Water Users Association is the main mechanism for beneficiary participation. Together with the government section officer, the committee members form the team responsible for construction management. Jointly, they plan construction activities, work division, and decide on design modifications with the section officer. The committee members can take charge of record and stock keeping, labor mobilization and supervision, and conflict resolution. It is their task to keep the other beneficiaries informed as well as representing them when dealing with government officials. Construction activities offer excellent opportunities for training the users' organization in management tasks. At this time, skills like masonry, record keeping, store management and labor organization can be imparted to farmers, providing them with experience they need for effective operation and maintenance of their schemes. The Constitution and bylaws of a Water Users Association describe the organization, rights, water allocation principles, water distribution practices, procedures for maintenance and conflict management. The purpose of such a set of rules is to improve functioning of the association and management of the scheme. During the construction period, the Water Users Association is assisted in drawing up its own constitution and bylaws during a series of committee meetings. These are then ratified by the whole water user community. All rules that already exist, unwritten and written, are integrated in the Constitution and the bylaws, which is adapted to local circumstances by the water users themselves. For the upkeep of the canal, water users associations are encouraged to establish a maintenance fund. The maintenance fund is made up from annual contributions and fines collected by the committee. The water users are advised to keep the money in an account with the local branch office of the Bank of Bhutan. However, most farmers are not familiar with the banking system. A training program has therefore been developed to support water users associations to operate a bank account and keep proper records of maintenance fund contributions and expenditure. The training starts with practicing signatures and numbers. Continues with the use of passbooks, checks, and cash deposit slips. And finally, bookkeeping procedures are explained and exercised. At the end of the 3-day training, all banking and bookkeeping are rehearsed in a role play that involves all participants. At the end of construction, a scheme management training is organized for the water users to discuss details of operation and maintenance, to review the Constitution and bylaws, and to go once more over banking and bookkeeping procedures. Now that construction and training activities are completed, the scheme can be inaugurated. The ceremonial opening of the canal is celebrated with dance and plenty of food and drink. The signing of the Certificate of Satisfactory Completion marks the end of the implementation period. From here on, the water users themselves are responsible for operation and maintenance of their scheme. The committee will be in charge of day-to-day management. This, however, does not mean that government is no longer involved. The policy procedures include a so-called establishment period. Over a period of 5 years, regular visits are undertaken by government officers to monitor the functioning of the association and the performance of the scheme. Where necessary, water users will be advised on improving their management, their agricultural practices, or their organization. While it is still too early to claim that the national irrigation policy is the answer for sustainable development of community irrigation schemes, pilot-scale implementation of the policy has shown promising results. Not only has its application been a lot more enjoyable for everyone involved, it has also created a much more effective cooperation between water users and government staff. To promote application of the policy, the Community Irrigation Training Project has been set up within the irrigation headquarters of the Ministry of Agriculture.
In advance prepare. So usually see that they have order and
the Community Irrigation Training Project focuses on developing the skills among government staff to apply the community approach that is the core of Bhutan's national irrigation policy.